Okay, I'm very excited to tell you about my research. This is a big overview of my book project. So as you may have noticed, young people today read and write using a wide range of media, books, film, blogs, texting, etc. And those media require new literacies, so visual literacy, information literacy, digital literacy, etc. So my research suggests that this proliferation of new literacies is not unique to the digital age. In the late 18th and 19th centuries, children's books were one of many manipulable technologies designed to teach children what I call mechanical literacies of this industrial age. So I define mechanical literacies as the ability to read the dependable laws governing how things are sensed, observed, manipulated, created, purchased, manufactured, and exchanged. So these are two technologies here on the slide that are used to teach mechanical literacies during this period. On the left hand, these are alphabet tiles, and you're probably familiar with alphabet tiles, but there's kind of like a new thing in the 18th century. There are like antecedents to it, but it becomes much more popular. You're probably not so familiar with this weird looking thing over here. This is a pan-organon. It's this strange sort of gymnastics kind of thing. These are instructions for building it in your backyard. And it's a way for children to experience in their muscles the 5 simple machines. So you can like experience the inclined plane. And then you can also transform it into a swing set. And I'm not making this up. So like, that might seem really weird, but this was actually included in the Encyclopedia Britannica in the early 19th century for several decades under the entry for simple machines. So it was something that people found like quite interesting and compelling. So these two technologies are quite different in what they're trying to teach, but they both make an abstract concept tangible. And that's what I'm trying to look at. And also, what is the connection then between learning language and learning mechanical philosophy? So mechanical literacies gained importance during the 19th century with the rise of industrial economies and global capitalism. And as primary education became increasingly universal and institutionalized, so in classrooms and for everybody. So responding to these changes, educators developed what we would call today experientialist teaching methods, but what they called object lessons, or the education of things. Object lessons combines traditional reading and writing with these new mechanical literacies. So as one periodical explains in 1826, schools must provide students with, quote, sensible signs, whereas the old plan of instruction was to teach by words and books, cultivating the memory. In the new system, words and books are mere instruments towards the elucidation of things themselves. Or as Samuel Wilderspin, the father of British infant school movements, explains, I consider learning to read a secondary object to that of teaching children to examine into and find out the nature and property of things, of which words are but signs. It is with things and not words we wish to make our children acquainted. So this like book bashing, in a sense, is like makes it so that people want to integrate learning the alphabet and learning to read with these other newly elevated literacies. So here are some technologies of this era invented to do that. This is an alphabet scroll, alphabet cards, and a round alphabet at the bottom. And this isn't showing up very well, but it's an alphabet puzzle, and the alphabet letters are made up of people's bodies. And so it's suggesting that you can, as a game, also like form the letters with your bodies. So this way of making symbols concrete extended to books, and I'll give you a couple examples there. So this is a grammar book that actually, it's like a book down here, but it comes with this box that's attached to the book. And then it has these movable colored pieces that are different parts of speech, and you can practice the grammar lessons with them. This is Hymns and Prose by Anna Letitia Barbauld, a very famous children's book of the late 18th century, which is made into a rebus puzzle. So some of the words are replaced by images. And then this up here is pretty complicated, and I'll explain what this is. So this is a story of Harry and Lucy, which has appended to it a glossary. And the glossary at the end defines some of the words that are used in the story. So at the beginning of the book, there are instructions provided for its use that say, the asterisk in the text refers to the glossary. And when the child is directed to ask to see anything, it is hoped that his teacher will show him what he asks for and let him handle and examine it. So instead of defining stuff, this glossary says like, hammer, ask to see hammers of different sorts and be told their uses. Or over here, hussif, ask to see a hussif. And it's actually a slightly different word in the 18th century. I bet some of you don't know what a hussif was in the 18th century. So if anyone would like to ask to investigate a hussif, I have an object learning in action. Would anyone like to investigate? I will. Okay. Sorry, I tried to get it back there, but there you go. So you can investigate, and this is the idea. This is object lessons in action. I'm not going to tell you. You have to figure it out. So, so in the book story, the story of Harry Lucy that has this glossary in it shows the same thing. So it's a story of this little girl who watches how cream is made in her mother's dairy, while Harry, her brother, observes blacksmiths and bricklayers. And then at the end, they reconvene at their house where they play at making bricks and build a small house. And then they listen to their mother read a story before they go to bed. So in a single day, Harry and Lucy's progress recapitulates the historical stages of civilization. That's a big claim, but I don't think it's an accident. It's saying that, okay, we begin by learning with our hands, then we progress towards becoming symbolic people with like writing implements and so on. And likewise, that's the way that children will learn. So Harry and Lucy exemplify some basic concepts that I associate with object lessons very widely. I'll just enumerate what those are. So first, objects and literacy texts function as complementary technologies. Objects point to books. Books tell you to look back at the world of objects. 2, object learning makes learning fun by collapsing distinctions between work and play. So Harry and Lucy consider brick making, which is work, they think it's play. But that's only possible because Harry and Lucy are not bricklayers. So there's some class implications here because this philosophy was developed for very wealthy children originally, but it was applied widely to popular education, which means that at the time that was happening, it minimizes work by making it look leisurely, and that's kind of problematic. So lastly, this philosophy implies that children are what they grasp. The things in their environment become who they are. So the objects around them are autobiographical mirrors of their cognitive development. And in organizing and classifying the world of things, children gain mastery over themselves and over their environment. And as a result, object learning easily confuses learning with collecting and knowing with owning. So I'll give you an example of this, of how collecting is connected. Actually, I'm going to skip that for a bit. So one of the implications of this is that if knowing is owning, then children who own fewer things know less. So this was actually a major concern of this era. You have people arguing that poor children don't have access to enough stuff in their house, and this will make them have difficulties in school because they have fewer object lessons. So a lot of poor schools had these infant object lessons as a way of transitioning students towards reading because they thought this was necessary. So this is a children's book, more for wealthy children, I would say, by Henry Cole. And it's an alphabet book, so it has E is for elephant, has a picture of an elephant over here. And it's called the ABC book, An Alphabet of Quadrupeds. And it has these accompanying natural history lessons that tell you about the animal's habits and its uses in manufacturing, like what products you can make out of it. In the dedication to his daughters, Cole describes the book as a kind of museum. Quote, "This book puts you in possession of a little picture gallery of your own." And it's because the pictures were copies from the British Museum. So note that the children imitate Cole's collection practices and own the artwork in their virtual gallery. It puts them in possession of their little picture gallery of their own. So, and then he tells them, these pictures should make you want to go to the British Museum. And going to the British Museum should make you want to see these actual animals. So there's like this series of going back to the original that's implicated in this. And Cole didn't come up with this himself. It's actually already popular by the time he's publishing this idea of the collection cabinet. This is called the alphabetical cabinet on the left, which makes collecting letters into a kind of collection. And this is called the cabinet of quadrupeds, which is a collection of animals. So as you learn the animals, you kind of put them in the box. So, by the way, Henry Cole is also the mastermind behind the Great Exhibition of 1851. So he has major connections with sort of design of museums and trade shows and world fairs. And this was like what he was doing before then, interestingly enough. So I hope that this description of my project suggests some parallels between the industrial era and today. So first, then as now, a major shift in economy and technology is accompanied by new ways of understanding the materiality of texts and the emergence of new literacies. Secondly, then as now, educators and parents responded by seeking new tools for teaching these new literacies, and they perceived poor children as lacking access to what they needed to learn these literacies. And 3, then as now, new institutions were formed to help children have access to the specimens and objects in their case, but for us it would be like digital technologies needed to learn these literacies. And then finally, these institutions struggled with ethical questions of access, funding sources, and class politics. So a lot of sort of like museums and mechanics institutes, they had questions about whether or not the kind of institution should be political or not. So a lot of the poor and working class people wanted these institutions to be political, whereas the funding sources tended to want them to be apolitical. And there were fights over like what should be allowed in the libraries and reading materials, and whether or not those poor people should have access to education that's political. So that applies to modern conversations that we have now about whether libraries and other institutions are political or not. So I hope you can see these sort of parallels here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we are well ahead of time. We've been we're good. We're very good. It's very nice not to be super rushed and stuff. So please, are there any questions there we go. Dr. McDowell, if you could, oh yeah, the thingy. We still have to solve the puzzle of the thingy.
So is that also a sewing kit?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So HESF is like where you keep your needles and little bits and pieces for sewing. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Kate. So any other questions? Soon-to-be Dr. Ginger.
Almost. I have to talk into the mic. So we're seeing literature from the western part of the world in the 1800s. Have you looked into literature from other parts of the world, and have you seen this trend in other?
Yeah, so I can tell you where some of these sources are coming from. So the majority of these that I've been showing you are British. A lot of the education theories that I've looked at are much more, they cross the country lines and are translated between, I think, Britain, France, the United States, and Germany pretty readily. But you see these ideas spreading outward, I think, now a lot more. But at the time, who people are talking to is mainly within that pocket of exchange, I would say.
Yeah, I would just be curious, because I bet you could find parallels in other areas and other...
Oh, absolutely. And I think that these ideas are also very old. So you can see, from thousands of years ago and from other geographical regions, similar ideas about the need to make things more comprehensible than just memorization would allow. Like that idea is very prevalent in many different cultures and times. However, the kind of intense proliferation of like a whole institutional structure for doing that, I think is something that you don't see until you have some kind of, there's a variety of different factors that allow it to happen. You have to have institutional markets to ensure that the production of these objects can be sold readily, for instance. And then people, I think, take a different spin on it when you have universal education. So there's different ways that this sort of plays out specifically in this context. And even in the United States, it's different as well. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Illinois.